Hey everyone, welcome to the Slice of Construction podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today is Phil Thoden, the president of the Austin Chapter of the Associated General Contractors of America. Phil, how's it going?
Good morning, Jared. It's going great. Happy Friday. Another good
Happy
day for
Friday.
construction, right?
Absolutely. I'm loving that sign behind you, by the way. You have the nice background there. That is quite the sign. That's is that right when you walk in the office?
Yeah, we did a renovation of this building in 2000. It's a building that was built in the 1970s, and we've been on this property since 1946. And as Austin has grown, we made the strategic decision: do we double down on where we are, or do we sell and move? So as part of the renovation, we have this great wall. It's got the AGC colors, and as you come walking in, it's what you're looking at. And normally for a conversation on Zoom or on social media, I have a really cool background, which is a mural, which is on the side of our building. It's a massive 750 square foot mural. It's called the Build a Great Life mural. If you go to our website, agcaustin.org, there's a time lapse of the woman who put it together. It's all iconic imagery of buildings that have been built or were being built, and then other construction imagery like tower cranes. And then also nestled in there is a lot of Austin's natural beauty, right? Which visually that communicates what we always say about our industry, which is that we are all about building our community's quality of life. We have a great natural quality of life here, but without the built environment, we'd be doing this podcast underneath a tree, right? So check that out. I'm super proud of it, and people come by and take pictures, and people in the industry really love it too.
And I want to point something out, because you've been president now for it's been like over 20 years, right? You've hit the 20 mark.
Yeah.
So, but how cool is that for you to see how much just from a built environment, right? Austin has transformed, because I'm sure it looks a lot different than it did 20 years ago when you first stepped into this role, right?
Yeah, it is crazy. I've lost track of how many new buildings are currently under construction. They're like, new buildings are like Texas wildflowers in the spring. You know, you drive by one day and the next day is like, oh my gosh, what's that coming out of the ground? It's been that intense, and it's been very condensed in a lot of places right downtown. So it looks even more spectacular. But, one thing about the Austin market, I always remind myself of, because we've been a lot of firsts, and tacos or music or whatever, and people get a little egotistical. And in construction, you see all these cranes when you come downtown, but actually our commercial building construction market is about a third or so of what's happening up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it's somewhere like between a third and a half of what's happening in Houston. So, we're doing a lot. It looks like a lot, but it's actually smaller than some other markets here in Texas.
Interesting. And you've probably seen, like, I see this just in the last couple of years. It seems like these buildings are going up faster now too. So it must be cool for you to see like how quickly a building was going up, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and how they're able to do it now. Do you see that same thing?
I guess so. Yes and no. The problem with Austin construction, frankly, is that permitting takes so long. So it may seem like it's taking a short time, but I was just talking with someone this week, and he said, Phil, we inked a deal for a large project about a year and a half ago. We are still in permitting because there's so much going on with a new light rail system that's happening, in utility relocation, and our Great Streets program, and other things that are happening. And you have some people who aren't willing to make decisions about approving things. So it's very, very frustrating to build here, but people continue to build here, as evidenced by everything that we see. As far as the speed, yeah, probably you're right. I don't have any specific data, but, with various technologies and yeah, I'm sure it's moving faster.
What was it about this role when you first took it over that made you want to join this organization? And it's obviously, I know that I'm sure you have the answer, even though it was a while back, but would love to hear that, and then would love to talk more about how you're supporting construction firms in the Austin area.
So a little bit of background about myself, Jared. I came here from Washington, D.C., And I went to school up there, graduated in 1989, and I started working in politics. I worked for an elected official. And I realized that I really didn't care that much about particular policy that was being made. Like some people are really into economic policy or foreign policy, whatever. But I really love the people who would come to that elected official's office every day, kind of like what you're doing. You get to interview people and hear in 20, 30 minutes, like, oh, this really interesting stuff about what they're doing. And that's what I gravitated towards. I eventually moved over to the AGC of America, a trade association. That was my first role, and I was handling, of all things, tax and fiscal affairs. I'm not an accountant. I can add two and two. That's about it. But what really attracted me to AGC way back then, that was in 1998, was that the first event I went to, even before I started working there, the people I met were very genuine and friendly and engaging, and they were from all over the country, and they were all doing really fascinating bits of work in their community that builds their quality of life. And one thing I've learned about the construction industry is that to be successful, you really need to be plugged into your community. You need to know the developers in that crowd and the finance people in that crowd. You need to know the trades in that crowd. You need to know the people who are on your job site, just starting out. And so the most successful companies I've seen, they have people who are good people, right? Generally speaking. And also, furthermore, the industry is largely family owned still. So when I go to an AGC meeting, like this summer, we had a state convention in Lake Tahoe. My wife came, my youngest daughter came. Over the years, my family has come because, I paid for the airfare. We got the hotel room already paid for. But in our industry, it's not only encouraged for people to bring their family to those meetings, but it's expected. And that really sets the construction industry apart. So back to your question about the Austin AGC, though, I moved here in 2003. I had a wife, 2 kids, and no job because we just made the decision to leave Washington, D.C. And somebody gave me great advice. They said, Phil, in your gut, this is the right decision. You need to leave Washington, D.C. You don't know where your feet are going to land, but it's a step in the right direction. And so with that mentality, we moved down here. But 4 months of unemployment, I had some income coming in and some resources, but if you know the end game and you're going to be gainfully employed, unemployment's great because you have so much time on your hands. But when you don't know what you're going to be doing every day, every waking moment, and even your dreams are fraught with anxiety at night. But Jared, I got a phone call out of the blue from the Agency of America, and they said, hey, there's this Austin AGC building chapter, and the executive director just announced that he's leaving. And I couldn't believe it. It was like a miracle because I loved working for the Agency of America, and I just knew that this was going to be a great spot for me. So that's how I started in 2003. And, Austin back then was a place I had to explain where it is. Now I mention I'm from Austin. People are like, oh my God, I love, Willie Nelson and Austin City Limits and tattoos and tacos and Formula One and blah, blah, blah. So,
yeah, it's changed a lot. It's even if you were to talk to someone outside of the U.S. and you mention Austin, they know Austin now, right? That wasn't the case probably when you first started.
No, it was kind of embarrassing and frustrating because living in Washington, D.C., people want to talk to you about, do you know the president or whatever? Yeah, I mean, you could see the blank eyes, like, where's Austin now? And that's what I really enjoy about my job here. I represent the construction industry, but fundamentally, my role is that of a trade association executive. So I'm kind of a cat herder and a connector. I've never built a building. I've never insured a building. I've never estimated a construction project. I've never litigated a construction project. But listen, I know thousands of people who do that and who are experts. And so that's my role. And Austin, because it's become a globally shiny object, what I've really enjoyed is like talking to you. You're interested in Austin. I'm connecting with you. I've connected with people from Australia, Japan, France, Israel, and all across the country because they're interested in Austin. And that's what I really thrive on right now. In addition to, continuing to do the services that we routinely do for our members. This extra fun layer, icing, if you will, on the cake has come about, particularly with construction technology.
Well, you know what's interesting is, so I live in St. Pete, Florida, south of Tampa,
Yeah,
and we had a bunch of people, much like your area, like during the pandemic, that ended up moving down here. And you know what they keep saying? They're like, we have a chance to be the next Austin, is what they say. So the fact that someone says that, though, speaks to, you know, how you've built the city,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, I think you have a bit more of a tech scene than we do, which probably has helped with construction and some of the office buildings and things like that, right? But it's, I mean, it must be. It's kind of cool though for someone to put that in a sentence. We have a chance if we do things right to be the next Austin. And I was like, that just speaks to what Austin's doing when you say something like that.
Yeah, but in what way is it, like in attracting technology, or is it in creating a vibe that young people thrive on and retirees thrive on? I mean, what's the
It's a vibe that you can get kind of like, two generations, that like you still have the, like we see it here. We have a strip that's kind of like kind of like it's almost like New Orleans, probably like one of your strips with like the bars and stuff like that, where a
Mhm.
lot of like the younger kids go right out of college. And then we're starting to see these skyscrapers go up, which there was like none down here. Even I moved here 4 years ago, there was very few, and now it seems like there's a new one going up, every couple months.
Interesting.
But yeah, so it's partly, I think, a mixture of that. But they've been throwing it around like a blanket term quite a bit, Phil, which is interesting.
Yeah,
But I mean, hey, it speaks to Austin.
absolutely. Yeah, I've been to Sarasota. My daughter Rose Crew up in Boston, so I've been to Sarasota and enjoyed being there and seeing the professional championship. What do they call it? I guess I don't know, Regatta Lake or whatever it's called. But I enjoy driving around. It's a totally different vibe there. You get all the water. The beaches were fantastic, though. It was a Rosemary Beach, I think,
Mhm.
somewhere around there. Really, really enjoyed it. So I'll have to come back and check it out. I need to get to
Absolutely.
a Tampa Bay baseball game. I've been to 23 MLB stadiums, and I need to get to Miami and Tampa Bay. So they're on my agenda for next year.
Oh, cool. You'll have to mark when they have the new stadium here. They just approved, which was a big deal
Hmm.
down here. Like there was actually a lot of people that were against it.
Hmm.
But then they saw like how many jobs it's going to bring and like the community. But go, if at some point, if you have time, go check out the new stadium plans for
Okay,
Tampa,
I
because
will.
they're building like all these condo complexes around it and apartment buildings and restaurants, and it's really, really cool. And I think you're starting to see that everywhere with stadiums now.
Yep.
It's, we want to build the hub, not just the stadium people go to and then they leave.
That's really interesting you mentioned that because one thing we had the stadium for our soccer team built here, and it's a great community um, galvanizer. You know, people from all parts of Austin enjoy the Austin FC. Same way with our Longhorns as well, but I think generationally speaking, younger people really like the soccer. But I've been to the Texas Rangers and the Atlanta Braves locations here recently, and they have that whole setup. Texas Rangers, I mean, you got hotels and retail and apartments, and you're close to Jerry World, the Cowboy Stadium. So I was looking around, I'm like, I would live here if I were, a huge sports nut. I mean, I have everything that you need.
Yeah,
Thanks
I
for the
mean,
tip.
I'm even starting to see some places build where they have like a condo or an apartment on site, and they're like, part of your benefit is you get essentially tickets to the games, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of minor league teams are starting to do that, where it's like you live almost in the stadium so you can watch the baseball game from your balcony or something like that.
All
Because
good.
I'm not far from, we have, it's not like the MLS, it's like the league below it. I think it's the USL or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
But it's the Tampa Bay Rowdies down here, and there's a lot of condos that people can go, out their window and kind of watch the games, which is cool.
Very nice.
Um, but yeah, so talk me through, Phil. Some of the ways that the AGC, like in Austin, how you're providing, either guidance, support. What does that look like for these construction firms that are in the community?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. One, I always say that this job is a very political job, and I'm not talking about Democrats and Republicans, but I've had to learn over the years, okay, you're a large GC. What you are looking for is going to be different than a small supplier, right? So I kind of have to listen a lot and figure out what's important, and it varies. And if you don't understand that, I don't think you'll succeed in your role or in attracting people. Historically, our focus, if you're a contractor, here's what I would do. I would say, hey, Jared, we are the leading community of commercial builders working in Austin and throughout Central Texas. Technically, we're a trade association. It's kind of a wonky term. People don't understand that. But I say, here in Austin, we have a great community of 275 company members, about 36 general contractors, 140 specialty contractors, and the rest are suppliers and service providers, companies large and small. And the industry is really about people, right? Your father was in construction, right? I believe. And it's the people who really make it work. So we're very people focused here. We have some key services, safety. We've always had a safety director since the 70s to do job site inspections, partner with OSHA, be that resource in the event you have a challenging safety issue for him to address and hopefully prevent a problem. Advocacy is incredibly important. So I handle a lot of things at the local level that might come up. We also have a state group, and then we channel all the way up to the national level. Networking is huge for us, right? We have people who love to get together. Next week or 2 weeks, we have our clay shoot. We'll have over 200 people, 9 a.m., 11 a.m., 1 p.m. We do a rodeo, contractor rodeo in October. It's a barbecue cook-off. We have people who love to stay up all night, Friday night, making great food. The gates open up Saturday at this rodeo center outside of town, and we have a live band. We have tents, probably 25 to 30 companies, and you're eating good food, networking, and then we have rodeo action in the afternoon. So networking is huge. Education, we offer a variety of trainings online or in person, and then other things like a comp program, 401k, et cetera. Here's what I've learned about marketing, though. People remember how they feel. I once saw 2 commercials. This guy spoke to a group, and he said, I'm going to show you 2 marketing commercials for Barbie dolls, and tell me which one you like. The first commercial is this high-pitched female girly voice saying, Barbie's great, Barbie does this, Barbie does that, Barbie blah, blah, blah. It's like just vomiting all this stuff that Barbie does, and you like retain maybe like 10 or 20% of what she said max, and you're kind of like, whoa, tone it down. The next commercial, very little voiceover. It is a dad. The visuals are a dad and his daughter, and they're bonding over a Barbie doll. I mean, like, I have 2 daughters, so I just thinking about it, I'm kind of like, I get worked up. And he said, which of those commercials did you like? Everybody says, I loved the second one. So going back to how I would position our organization to somebody new, I'd say, Jarrett, here are some of the key things that we do. I just ran through some of those, but I'm like, listen, you're new to town. We got this clay shoot coming up. Come as our guest. Bring you and somebody from your company. We're not going to charge you the whatever it is, and just come hang out. I can guarantee you that I probably won't see you much, but when you're walking out of there, you'll track me down. You'd be like, you have a big smile like you have right now, and you'd be like, Phil, this was so great. We're signing up. Thank you so much. That's that network, that community building is really at the fundamental core of what we try and do here. And again, everybody's a little bit different. Some companies, they just care about advocacy. Some may just care about our comp group program. They're very transactional, but at the root, we have a great community of people, and that's what I'm most proud of here.
I love it. Phil, what's next for the association? Like, what are you most looking forward to as we head into we're in Q4 now, right? As we wrap up 2024, what's kind of top of mind for you?
So, there's been a little bit of a slowdown. Projects were put on hold in 2023 because of financing challenges and interest rates, including some projects around our neighborhood, which is fine with me because we just renovated. I've heard the term survive to 25. I think there's going to be plenty of work here. Companies are continuing to come down to Austin to pursue work. And that really makes us different than other markets because there is so much going on. It's not like the pie is only so big, but it's like there's so much work going on. We can't here locally do everything. Jared, I've been doing this for 21 years, and in a lot of ways, what we do is fairly routine. It's like, okay, we have the awards dinner, and then we have the golf tournament, and then we have the convention, and then we have this, that, and the other. So what I have been doing to kind of really engage me mentally and intellectually is diving into construction technology, because Austin is, Tesla and Dell and Google Tower, and it's become known as the shiny, innovative place for technology, and particularly construction technology. We have the Procore building here now. They have a major office, and I thought, how can our chapter better represent what's happening in technology? And what I've learned is that, this is just my opinion, I'm happy to debate with others about it, but the top 10 to 20% of firms, like I saw you interviewed Suffolk, right? Big national firm. They have people who are devoted to technology and innovation. Same way with like a J.E. Dunn, a Hensel Phelps, regional firms like Rogers O'Brien here and others. And those are leaders of the industry moving everyone forward. And they can take a look at all these shiny new solutions and vet them and figure out which ones to implement. But that's like a small percentage of the industry. The remaining, I'd say 80% of the industry, they're like, Phil, like, we're too busy putting out fires and feeding the beast of managing our projects daily. I have one IT person. We're not going to upset everything that we're doing. We're still sending paper checks, and so I thought, like, how can we create a part of our community here where people can come together and share what's happening with technology? But what I've found is that those leaders, if they'll share a little bit, like, oh, we use drones or we use a robot dog or whatever video capture, but they're not going to reveal everything. Why? Because it's their special sauce, I believe, right? It's what makes them a little bit cheaper, a little bit faster, a little bit better organizationally for a project. And so it's been challenging to get people together to talk about, fully about all the solutions. What I've been trying to do, I dip my toes into getting project data, permit data, and aggregating it into an app. It's called the Build It Permits app. So the number one question I get asked is, hey, do you know what project is being built at this location? I may know off the top of my head, but if I don't, I have to dig through the City of Austin's clunky permit portal. And it takes a lot of time and effort, and sometimes I don't get what I'm looking for. With this app, because our data is open source data, and it has latitude and longitude, you can download it into an Excel spreadsheet, lay it over a map of Austin, and then boom, you open up the app, you go to where you are, you click on a pin, and within a minute, you know the GC, the phone number of that GC. And there's a lot of people who are looking for solutions like that, right? They have a big funnel to fill, particularly suppliers and subcontractors. So after about a year or so, we launched that in September of 2022. Along came another tech company, and I believe you interviewed Chloe Smith with Mercator AI, right? Yeah. So awesome. Chloe walked into the office in March of this year when I was thinking about, okay, how do we take this app to 2.0? What can we do to take all of this data that I have kind of in my head? Another question I get asked is, hey, I'm doing a one-off project. I'm coming to town. I need MEP for, a 4-story medical building. I kind of have that in my head and I could share that, but I was like, wouldn't it be great to have a dashboard pulling the MEP data so somebody could go and just click and be like, oh, here's the top 10, in each trade. Mercator AI does that, and they have startup funding. Chloe is incredibly smart. And so within 5 minutes of her walking into the office, I realized that our heads are in the same place. So, to answer your question, what am I most excited about moving forward? It's continuing that partnership with Mercator AI, and then kind of positioning our chapter as bringing thoughtful solutions to you as a construction professional, from whether you're doing business development, looking far out, or you're ready to vet subs because you have a project right now. You interviewed Josh with Document Crunch. So, I need to talk more with him about how we better partner. You got the project. How do you insulate yourself against contractual problems? We had a webinar with Permit Flow yesterday. How do you get your permit processed more quickly? I mean, I could talk about all kinds of heartburn there in that world, and so on and so forth. So that I'm not just like vomiting all these solutions, because people are kind of like, there's so many out there, I don't know what to do. But being thoughtful and creating, like, from the very beginning to the very end, here are partners that we believe in at the Austin AGC. So that's kind of what's in my head and what I want to continue to flesh out moving forward in 2025. Making technology a way to do more with less.
Phil, thank you so much for joining me here today on the podcast. Look forward to future conversations, and we should do something like when I am out in Austin, we can do some like dual co-hosting type thing where we can interview some folks and have a fun time with it. And I love that you're very much like myself, interested in all these new technologies out there too, and what they're doing. And yeah, that's a curiosity.
And I really want to pay you a compliment. I was not familiar with slicing construction until you reached out to me, and I've been trying to catch up because, I mean, you have some really great people and content, and so I've been putting them on like speed 1.5 so I can blow through them and just get a little bit more information about what's happening with the people that you're talking to. So thank you. As you know, and I do too, there's so many interesting, great people out there. And before we started recording, I mentioned to you that there's so many fascinating people in the trades. And the more you could do that, sort of like a micro dirty jobs, and talk to these incredible people who their nightmare is being in an office, right? They love being out there with their team and building stuff. And some of them are quiet doers, but some of them have big personalities and just larger than life characters that you've met, that I've met, and celebrating them and giving them the spotlight, I think goes a long way toward workforce recruitment. I mean, I've seen that with HGTV, right? It's, interior design and all that, but it's 24/7 of cool, successful, camera-friendly people, and you want to be like them. If you're a 16-year-old kid now, peer pressure is saying, hey, it's cool to be Chip and Joanna in Waco, Texas, with Magnolia Farm or whatever. And we need more of that. So I applaud you for what you're doing. And I think there's a lot more ground you can till.
Phil, quick story before we wrap up here. This was not through my father, but I definitely think this was probably not allowed. When I was 16, 17 years old, I was brought to a job site. My father wanted to see if it was one of his friends. It was not through him. If I would like working in that field, right? So I was helping like move sheetrock for the day.
That stuff's heavy, yeah.
Oh man, did I sleep that night? Everything hurt. It is just an awkward thing to carry. First off,
yeah.
And he goes, "Do you want to do this, or do you want to, do you want to go to school?" I'm like, I'm gonna go. Like, I'm not saying this is not for someone. Like, someone will love it and get into it, but it was interesting though that it was. I think I was also too young to try it out, because that was a very heavy thing, even at 16, to be like lugging around and holding up and things like that. But it's it's incredible what these workers are doing and building, and how there's parts of it they do fall in love with. I'm sure there's parts they don't like about their jobs too, like everyone. But it was just an interesting experience. I'll never say who it was or what job site I was on, but I definitely don't think that was allowed for some kid to be helping out.
Well, what I would have done in that situation, if I was trying to recruit you, I would have taken you out to the parking lot, and I'm sure somebody who's doing what you were doing that day, they have like a shiny F-150 or whatever the truck was at the time, a dually, and they're like, hey, let's go out and grab, some dinner, and they pull out some cash. Like, yeah, I'm 21. I was just like you in high school a few years ago. I got this truck. I go fishing down, at the pier, whatever. And that's what resonates. It's not the work, but
no, exactly. That's what my father always said, though, that you have people sometimes that they decided to go to college instead of go into the trades, but they may have really liked the trades and they should have went into the trades. And then instead they walk out with 4 years of debt where they could have been making money those 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've met a lot of people that were buying houses, in their early mid-20s because they didn't go to school. And listen, everyone has their own path; they're going to pick their own path. But I do think this is a path that more people should look into based on everything that I've learned.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do. And you're bringing a little bit of that to bear here with your podcast and introducing people to construction. So the more we can do that, yeah, we could talk all day about workforce
Awesome.
development.
Go. We'll talk more. This is not going to be our last conversation. So great having you on.
Look forward to seeing you in Austin. We'll go check out some cool job sites.
Love it.
All right.